What's going on, my people? Welcome back to another episode of the Stop the Count podcast. In this episode, I'll be talking about the great weekend we have waiting for us in the UFC and boxing, also about Chivas' participation in the League's Cup. First, talking about the Stephen Fulton versus Naoya Inoue card. I'll start off by talking about the co-main event, Robeisy Ramirez versus Satoshi Shimizu. What more is there to say about Robesi's performance? From the first sound of the bell, Robesi was dominant, an absolutely amazing performance. After the first round, I would have liked to see more bodywork from Ramirez, but besides that, his game plan was perfect. Being able to draw Shimizu in and open himself up, knowing Robesi had the power advantage, the fight ended in a fifth round stoppage of Shimizu. That ended a great performance from one of the best featherweights in the world, Robesi Ramirez. And for the out-of-the-ring problems that Robesi had to endure over the last couple of days with his home country of Cuba, it takes a true man to get into the ring and be clear-headed and put on a great performance like he just did. Now for the main event, Stephen Fulton versus Naoya Inoue. All I'm going to say is what an amazing fight for Inoue. This was probably what I would say is the most dominant performance in a championship level fight in recent history. There was nothing that Inoue could have done better. He made this fight look easy. Stephen Fulton was no pushover, but he really didn't do himself any favors. With how he was going into the fight from the first bell, you could tell Fulton lost the mental battle, giving Inoue too much respect. Fulton wouldn't pull the trigger when he had a clear shot, and yes, that's easy for me to say. I'm not the one getting hit by what Inoue was throwing back, but every chance you don't take is a chance you miss. And all this talk on Fulton being too much physically for Inoue really didn't happen. From the feet to the head, Inoue was the bigger fighter. Just looking at the legs where the power gets generated from, Inoue had the clear advantage. Inoue was also by far the more physical fighter in the fight. Inoue really did a great job offensively. In my opinion, the biggest key to him winning this fight was his jab. He was able to control almost every second of the fight using it, and Fulton had no answer. Fulton's jab was also not at the level of Inoue's this fight. The fight ended in an 8th round knockout for Naoya Inoue, and it was really set up by his jab. Nonetheless, this takes nothing away from these two great fighters. It was an amazing fight, and Fulton loses nothing. It takes a truly great fighter to travel to another's home country when he doesn't have to. And in my opinion, no matter what happens Saturday, Naoya Inoue is the pound for pound #1 fighter in the world. He will be fighting Marlon Tapales next. And now, talking about the Bellator card headlined by ajmckee and patrickypitbull. I'm not too familiar with anyone else on the card, so I'll only be talking about the main event. It is a part of the lightweight Grand Prix. Talking a little bit about what I've been seeing going around, and that is that people have seen a lot of Bellator fighters' names on the UFC website. Why? I don't know. I also believe it has something to do with the PFL buying Bellator and giving the fighters a chance to test the market. Most Bellator champions will probably make the switch to UFC. One name we will 100% not see is Vadimnemkov. There is no way he betrays Fedor Emelianenko and signs with the UFC after all that was said between Dana and Fedor. It's honestly pretty bad in my opinion. Yuri Prohaska versus Vadimnemkov would be a great fight. Talking a little bit about the main event, ajmckee versus patrickypitbull. AJ is one of the best fighters in Bellator. He has already beaten Patricky's brother, Patricio, and he has also lost to Patricio. AJ is also a featherweight Grand Prix winner. This is going to be a great fight between two great, well-rounded fighters. Patricky did not have the best performance his last time out against Usman Nurmagomedov, and he lost the lightweight title via decision. And honestly, I feel that this fight will end the same way, with ajmckee making this fight look pretty easy and pulling off the decision victory. Now for the top rank card headlined by Senisaestrada versus leonelayudica for Estrada's unified minimum weight titles. This fight is on July 28th, a Friday. It's an absolutely stacked card with many great prospects on it. First, talking about some prospects, one of them is Subarumorata. He is a 26-year-old, but he's coming off of a crazy first-round knockout in March, and I'm expecting this super bantamweight to show great things. Former U.S. Olympian Karlosbalderas is also on the card in his first fight of this year, and with his new trainer Robert Garcia in his corner. He's fighting a tough opponent in Nahir Albright. This is going to be an amazing fight. Hard-hitting prospect Rohanpolanco is also on the card. The co-main event is being fought between two fighters who I would say are the closest to contender status than anyone else on the card, and that is unbeaten Andrescortes going up against Xaviermartinez. I have not seen much of Cortez, but from what I've seen from Martinez, it makes me think Martinez will pull off the decision victory. Now for the main event, Senisaestrada puts up her unified titles against Leonelayudica. To keep this short and simple, I 100% believe we will see another top-notch boxing performance from Senisaestrada. She's an absolute beast. Now for the boxing card we have all been waiting for, the Showtime boxing card. Many people have been waiting for it. It's headlined by what many seem as the two best fighters of this generation, Terrence Crawford versus Errol Spence, to unify the welterweight division. One will be crowned undisputed champion. It's a great card with two championship fights on it. The first is nonitodonaire versus Alexandrosantiago for the vacant WBC bantamweight title. Getting into the card, starting with Isaac Pitbull Cruz versus giovannicabrera. This is going to be a fight fought between two totally different styles. Pitbull is a go-forward, balls-to-the-wall fighter who doesn't care if you hit him because he knows when he hits you, it hurts. And Giovanni is the definition of a defensive boxer. It's going to be a great fight in my opinion, but I would slightly be leaning towards Pitbull just to do with the power, but it will be close. Jesus Ramos was also going to be on this card, and I was very excited to watch him fight, but unfortunately he had to pull out due to injury. For the co-main event, nonitodonaire versus Alexandrosantiago. I talked about this fight a couple weeks ago before it was cancelled, so I'll summarize it a little bit. Nonito is a pound-for-pound lower weight king, one of the best fighters of his generation. He is getting up there in age, and it won't be easy for him to be crowned champion again. Alexandrosantiago is a very tough fighter. He's not the strongest and he's not the most technically sound, but he's a dog, and I believe he'll be able to pull off the upset and be crowned the new WBC bantamweight champion. Now for the main event, Terrence Crawford versus Errol Spence Jr. to unify all the belts in the welterweight division. What is there to say about this fight? Two top 5 pound-for-pound fighters going at it since probably Canelo versus Triple G 1 and 2. There is no breakdown for this fight. They're two of the best boxers we've seen for quite some time. Getting straight into who wins this fight, boxing wins this fight. That's the major winner of this fight. For a fight many saw as being dead and not happening, for it to actually be going down is great, and it shows what these two warriors are made out of. I do not care about the outcome of this fight as long as it's good for boxing. Boxing really needs it. I can't wait to see this fight. It's going to be an absolutely amazing night, not just for the winner, but for the sport. Last but certainly not least, the UFC 291 card headlined by Dustinpoirier versus Justingaethje for the BMF belt. Another incredibly amazing card that's being put on by the UFC. First, talking about some prospects and fights I'm looking forward to. The first is a fighter with not just a perfect record, but a 100% finish rate. That is Gabrielbonfim, the Brazilian welterweight coming off a submission victory in less than a minute his last fight. He's facing Trevin Giles, who's coming off of 2 straight decision victories. This is a tough fight, but there's no way I see Bonfim not finishing Giles. Derricklewis is also on the card. Now, I'm not a big fan of heavyweights, but I'm a fan of his, and I hope he's able to pull himself out of this bad stretch he's in. Stephen Wonderboy Thompson is also on this card, and he's fighting Michael Pereira. And even at 40 years old, I still don't see Wonderboy's kickboxing letting him down. I believe Wonderboy wins this fight. Now for a fight I was really hoping to see, Paulo Costa versus Ikram Aliaskarov. This fight will not be happening on this card as they have both been moved to fight separate opponents on the UFC 294 card in October. Paulo will be fighting Khamzat Chimaev and Ikram will be fighting Nasruddin Imavov. For the co-main event, Jan Blachowicz versus Alex Pereira. As of right now, at the time of this recording, it has not been changed to a title fight. It's still, from what I've heard, a #1 contenders fight. These last 2 fights are so well matched. They're going to be amazing. This will be Alex's first fight in MMA at light heavyweight, and also his first fight since losing to Izzy in April. An amazing turnaround as it's only been 3 months since that pretty bad knockout loss he suffered. They are both connected to Izzy as Jan was the first person to hand Izzy a loss in the MMA, and of course Alex has a 3-1 record combining kickboxing and MMA. Talking a little bit about the fight, I don't think it will be as easy as most people think for Jan to take down Alex. Jan knows his stand-up and he knows he's capable of standing with any light heavyweight. So he won't go in there and start spamming takedowns, he'll test his stand-up with Alex. They both utilize low leg kicks and are very important to their style of fighting. The clinch game and ground game is going to be very important for Jan, but it really just depends on how Alex is preparing with Glover Teixeira. We also can't underestimate Alex. Just because he is the one moving up, we must remember Alex was the Glory Kickboxing light heavyweight champion, so we know Alex's game and power will translate well into this new weight. Jan did spend a lot of time standing with Izzy early, but I believe this one will be different, as I believe Alex has more power than Izzy, and Jan will try and force a couple of takedowns early once he feels Alex's power. Now, talking about who I think will win this fight, it is a very hard fight to pick, as Alex's game in MMA is still very unknown. But I honestly feel the later the fight goes, the chances of Alex winning only goes up, as Jan's gas tank has been a big question before. So I would honestly have to pick Alex Pereira winning by a later round knockout. I'm also basing this off of Alex's strength transitioning well into his new weight and his development of takedown defense and ground game under Glover Teixeira. Even if it's just a little development to those aspects of his game, it'll go a long way in this fight. Now for the main event, Dustinpoirier versus Justingaethje 2, a rematch of the fight of the year from 2018. This is going to be an amazing fight. It is for the BMF belt, which in my opinion, on the belt, it is a very neutral. I don't care about it, I'm not for it, and I'm not against it. I do believe whoever holds the belt gets pay-per-view points, which, if that's true, is a major plus for the fighter if they don't already get some. Talking about the fight, it's going to be amazing. All action, balls to the wall, they're going to put on a show. It might not last the whole 5 rounds, but for as long as it lasts, it's going to be great. I've always thought of Justin to be the better fighter on the feet, and not by much, but Dustin is the better all-around fighter with the ground game and stand-up. The leg kicks are going to be very important in this fight, as it is in most for Justin. It was very important in the first fight as well, if you remember. I don't believe this fight will go to the ground at all. They both have really good takedown defense, and I'm sure they know the fight the fans want, and they'll give it to us. For who I believe will win this fight, I think Dustin Poirier will pull off the victory. How? Who knows? But I would think it's a knockout, and they both deliver another fight of the year candidate. For the Leagues Cup and Chivas participation in it, Chivas start the Leagues Cup off on the 27th of July, a Thursday, and they face Cincinnati, the top team in the MLS standings versus the top team in the Liga MX standings. I believe this will be a good game. I'm not too excited for the Leagues Cup, as I feel as if it's not the most important tournament for Chivas. I wouldn't be mad if they don't win this tournament. I really just want to see the young players play more, especially Raul Martinez and Alex Organista. They haven't really seen minutes in the league, so this tournament should be a good way to see them play. I also didn't really like the amount of youngsters they took to this tournament. I believe besides Yael Padilla and Jesus Brigido, these were the only 2 people who I would consider youngsters they took. And I would have liked to see them take some more youngsters. I would have really liked to see them take Mateo Chavez, a young left back who usually plays for Tapatio, as well as Miguel Gomez, another young right back who usually plays for Tapatio and is a seleccionado U23 player. This would have been the right time, in my opinion, to take Miguel Gomez, because Chapito Sanchez's form has really just been declining over the years and is right now at an all-time low, so this would have been the right time to see him play. Also, Oscar Wally is also being reported as the starter for the tournament, and against Bilbao, he really didn't have to make a save, and I wasn't that impressed with the ball on his feet. But this tournament will truly bring his game to light if it is that he does start. Paunovic is going to keep on experimenting with the squad, so that'll be fun to watch. For the game against Cincinnati, I feel as if Chivas are currently levels ahead of them and should win convincingly. I feel the game will end with a 3-1 win for Chivas. I'll just say keep an eye on Brandon Vasquez, Cincinnati striker. He's probably going to score if Cincinnati does score. That's it for this video. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Also, follow me on Twitter at StopTheCount10. See you next week as I talk about what went down in these events. See you then.